Oh my goodness, we almost had to call the meeting.
Last year there was.
Ms. Ames, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Shockey?
Yes.
Mr. Holden?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Scarborough?
Yes. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mrs. Shockey, would you lead us, please?
I will be glad to. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you'd all remain standing for just one moment, please. Mrs. Shockey is going to speak.
I just wanted to take a moment of silence for Roland Fluitt. Roland was a school committee member from 1978 to 1984. He was actually chairman from 1978 and 79, and again in 1983 and 84. Besides being a school committee person, Roland was a dedicated citizen of the United States, yes, of the United States, but of Winthrop in particular. And also, our condolences to Phyllis, who is also a school committee person, and their two daughters, and to say how grateful we are for everything he did for Winthrop and the Winthrop school system. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mrs. Shockey. We'll go right to the minutes. Minutes from June 9th. In your packet. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? Ms. Hames, in the minutes under the paragraph Superintendent Evaluation Subcommittee, you have that?
Yes.
The fourth line down, the motion. The motion was made to recommend, I think if you could just add the word to, T-O. The motion was made to recommend to the Winthrop School Committee.
Oh, yes, okay.
Not much of a change, but thank you very much.
Okay, I can do that.
We'll take a vote to approve these or not approve. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? They're approved. Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, you recall at our last meeting, we had a discussion on MCAS versus Park.
We did.
And you were going to come back?
I did some research again on it, and I talked to my counterparts in the 5 district, as well as I went on and looked at a little more on the MCAS and Park. So let me just walk you through a couple of things here. First of all, if we were to choose to do the Park, we would only do it for grades 3 through 8. We would leave the high school as is, because that's state mandated right now, the high school 10th grade. We wouldn't do anything with 9th or 11th. The other thing is anybody who was on an MCAS alternate assessment would remain on an MCAS alternate assessment.
Even if they were in 3 through 8?
Even if they're in 3 through 8, because that's the only way that we do the Park. The MCAS right now. There is no alternative assessment for Park at this time. The other thing with Park is that Park would offer next year that you could do a paper exam as opposed to a computer exam, and if we were to go with Park, I would choose to go with a paper from 3 through 8. One of the things that I did check, I checked with my colleagues, because I know my colleagues at the other districts are all swinging to Park, and they did have a Park summit that I was not able to attend because I was in DC. But I did talk to some of my folks who were able to attend it, and they said that it went very well. But one of the things that I wanted to find out in regards to Park is that anytime you have something new, sometimes the test becomes the issue as opposed to the actual knowledge of the issue. It's about how do you take the test and what type of test is it going to be. And what I was told is if you do the Park, you will not be punished for poor performance on it. You will only be acknowledged for improvement on it. So that's something that we need to understand as well. My concerns are that I understand that we're going through a lot next year. I know that we've got transition and stuff that's happening, but hopefully that transition and stuff will be set in place by September, and we'll move. If we're not, then I'm not doing something right on that. So what I'm more concerned about is if park becomes mandated by the state in another year afterwards, and it becomes something that's going to be for our students that do have to pass it, do we give them an opportunity to try this? So in knowing that the 5-district partnership, the 4 districts already have, well, I know that 3 have approved park, and 1 is actually, tonight Malden is with their school committee and recommending park. I am also going to recommend that we look at park. I've changed my mind on it from the last time, and the reason for it is because I am concerned about our current students at that middle school level, that if it becomes something, I want them to have at least had that opportunity to participate in it. The other part of park is that the test is based on the curriculum knowledge of that year. It's not based on with MCAS, where sometimes it's stuff that comes in from 2 years, 1 year, or 3 years later. So it is a 1 year. According to the state, it would only be for grades 3 through 8, and those are my thoughts at this point. I felt that I needed to give it some good research on it, and I will say, Ms. Sullivan, your line kept sticking in my head for the last 2 weeks at the last meeting, where you were concerned about 8th grade, looking at that, and I believe that it's probably going to become the test of the future from the way the Department of Ed is moving it. But, they're doing the right thing by also getting input now from the school committee and going down into that level as well. But I want to make sure that we are, where we're at. So those are my thoughts on it.
Mrs. Sharkey?
More than not, I do support the superintendent. On this particular issue, I have to say I'm betwixt and between. I also have been reading a lot of information on the park, and I've also been reading the information that the Massachusetts School Board committees have been receiving, and they are not as positive with the park, as far one area being the reporting, and who actually sees the reports, and do they see the children's names with the reporting. And it does not seem that the DESC, first of all, dragged their feet in being able to explain who got material reported, and they finally did report it, but it does not sound like it was as strong a report or as a complete report that the DESC has been known to give. I also still, and I definitely hear Ms. Sullivan's concerns about our children being exposed to park, but I'm also seeing areas that it appears that there's only 14 or 15 states that have actually stepped into taking the core curriculum and the park testing, and now it seems that some states are pulling back and actually coming out of that particular area. So whereas I would love to see our kids exposed to it, I can only say that, again, as I said the last time, the strength of the test, or part of the strength of the test, is that it is online, and the children have the ability to pull figures around, turn them around, upside down. They're able to enlarge it. They're able to actually write their essays, and they can erase it and then start over again, whereas if we're going to be doing paper and pencil, they're going to be sitting there erasing and whatever. And I'm just thinking, when MCAS was first initiated, I think it was back in 1996, I think, is that after that first year of testing, the tests, questions were available for the teachers to use so that our kids could see examples of what the testing looks like. Initially, we actually got the whole test that was given the year before. Now we just get pieces of the test. And not that it was exactly the same way, but you could change the numbers, the figures, whatever. I'm just not sure still, and we still have, and I believe until September.
Well, we have till June 30th to say whether or not we want to go forward on it. And then what happens is you have from June 30th to October 1st to decide whether or not you want to change it from paper or computer. They really want it in by June 30th. And so that's the issue that we're at hand on this. So, I mean, I just want to make sure that, I'm fine if we stay with, the MCAS, but I just want to make sure that we're doing some other research on this and doing other things as well, because what I don't want is for us to get behind the 8 ball. I want to make sure that we're ahead of the 8 ball on this. And whereas the thing that intrigued me on a selfish purpose, I guess, is that the people that I'm working with are also going towards this step, as well as we're not supposed to be punished from it because we're trying it. We're supposed to be rewarded for it if we do. You know what I mean? So whereas the first time that it does maybe, say, okay, everybody's going to do it, and we don't, if we're not up to par on it at that point, we could be and punished for it. So those are my reservations on it, but I certainly understand. I've read a lot of information, and I think that people are still unsure, statewide as well as countrywide.
Mr. Holden?
A couple things. I know we discussed this last time.
Right.
We thought because of the transition, we were going to hold off. We weren't punished by not jumping into it this year.
Right,
We could go into it next year. It is concerning, the reading, how some schools are now backing out. MCAS was the test of the future, and now they're changing it, so who knows what's going to happen with Park. But with limited professional development time, and if we're going to go to Park, and also we're going to throw a lot of time and hours and days into it, I'm concerned about the iPad initiative, which was going to be professional development time. And I just think we're not prepared. We're doing a lot, and to throw something else onto the principals and vice principals and staff would be almost insurmountable for them.
If I may, sorry. I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. What I have to be careful on is that this is the test that at some point could hold us accountable. So I have to make sure that we're well prepared for that. That's all. I'm just trying to make sure that if that's a mandate from the state, I don't want us 2 years from now saying, well, yes, we were going through a transition, and I understand that, but they're not going to understand that. I'm good. I'm probably not winning my argument on it, but I'm good either way on it. The thing is that I just want to make sure that it's my job to bring out all the points on it, and so I want to make sure on that.
Ms. Sullivan?
I agree with everything everybody's saying too. It may be difficult to add on another professional development, hours of professional development, maybe days, to help the teachers get prepared to implement the test. What I've read is that, we've been teaching the Common Core anyway, and this is a test that's supposed to be testing the Common Core. And that's why a lot of districts are going for it now versus waiting. And I do sort of hold to my opinion of last meeting that we do want to give our incoming 8th graders an opportunity to practice and be prepared when they become 10th graders to pass this test, if that is in fact the test that they're going to need to pass to graduate high school.
If I can say, the superintendent's correct, as we've been reading, is that it will not be held against us, but the scores will still be publicized.
Yeah.
So, and the reason that I'm saying that, I hate for our scores to be publicized, not because they shouldn't be, but if we're being...
I'm sorry, Mrs. Sharkey.
I'm sorry.
We'll wait till they finish down here so everybody hears the same
All right.
information. I'm sorry. Are y'all... Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
If we're not, if them being publicized, our parents and the community will see our scores, and though they won't be counted against us, it means that they will not be comparable to 16, and then 16 to 17. So that's what it means by it won't hurt us, because they will not be compared. So it's almost like we get a free ticket. But our scores will still be available. And I'm saying if we're going into the testing with a disadvantage, that we are not going to be doing it online and we're doing it on paper and pencil, I think that definitely impacts. I don't know if they publicized. This school did it in paper and pencil, and this school did
No,
it
probably
online.
not. Right, you're right.
Probably not.
Probably
So
not.
therefore, I believe that we'll be at a disadvantage. But I'm kind of like arguing. But there are going to be many schools that are not ready to do the testing online. If you read some of the information, there's scores of schools that do not have the technology and are not going to be ready to take that test online in next year. So I guess.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
Ms. Sullivan?
I mean, I would say to that it's about us really educating the public, and if they're looking at our scores, if we do choose to go this route and then our scores are published and our scores look low, it's really about educating the public that may be critical of, of what the situation is or was, or and the reasons we decided, as long as we have a clear rationale either way, the reasons we decided to go for it or not. I just, I'm looking long-term at the students that are gonna need to pass it eventually, and giving them the most opportunity to practice it, and the teachers as well.
Anybody else? We
if I
don't
may,
actually have a motion on the floor at this point, but.
All right, last thing. I would like, and whether it's my own personal thing, I think that our children need a chance, and our teachers, to see how well we perform on MCAS this year. I believe that in my heart, I know that everyone's always tried hard, the children and the teachers and our administrators. But I would like to see one more time to see how well we do on the MCAS this year. And I think to pull out before we've seen a finalization, except for some testing, I know science will still be done in MCAS as well as in the 10th grade for graduation. I just think still doing 2 standard tests in one school system, major standard tests, is also somewhat confusing.
Okay. Mr. Superintendent, I assume you would like a decision from this committee.
Yeah, either way, I mean, just so that I know which way to direct that email that was sent to me from the Department of Ed, so that I can have a direction on it. I mean, we do have an advantage in the sense that if we stay with MCAS, I can certainly look to the left and right of my colleagues who are in it and see how that's going and take a look at that as well, so.
I'll make a motion then to continue with the MCAS testing until further notice.
Second.
Mr. Perrin seconds. Now, this gives us now the opportunity to choose either MCAS or PARC, because obviously if this motion fails, we will entertain another motion to go with PARC. But this motion now, a yes vote will be to continue with the MCAS in the fall, and a no vote would be to not continue with MCAS in the fall for grades 3 through 8. Okay? Ms. Hames, would you call a roll on this one, please?
Ms. Shockey?
Yes.
Mr. Holton?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan?
No.
Mr. Perrin?
Yes.
Mr. Scarborough?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And certainly, Mr. Superintendent, you can come back to us at any time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I will make sure that that's taken care of.
Thank you. Next are subcommittee reports, Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee. Ms. Sullivan.
We had a Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee meeting last Monday morning, June 19th, in the superintendent's office at 8:30. In attendance was myself, Superintendent Massaro, Chairperson Gary Scomrow, Paul O'Donnell from the DPW, and Sean Driscoll from the Director of Parks and Recreation. On the agenda was the school playgrounds and responsible parties for inspection and daily, weekly, and annual maintenance. Thought it was a very good, productive meeting. I was pleased, and so the gist of it is that there have been concerns about the maintenance of the mulch, which is underneath the inside playground at Gorman Fort Banks, and there was discussion of whether it's DPW's duty or the janitor's duty or the school department's duty to manage that. And what came out of the whole discussion was that during the summertime, Sean Driscoll from Parks and Rec has 3 employees that are temporarily employed for the summer. I believe they're high school students that will be making rounds every week and making sure that trash and mulch is picked up and raked back into the playground so that the fall heights are maintained for safety. And the other great thing that came out of that discussion was that the 2 school playgrounds will, in the spirit of consolidation, be incorporated into the Parks and Rec Department in terms of annual inspection for structural safety and security. So when Mr. Driscoll has a certified playground safety inspector come to Winthrop to look at all the playgrounds, which he does in a regular interval, he will include now the playground at Gorman-Fort Banks and the Cummings School. Any issues that are found will be, Mr. Driscoll will bring them to Steve Calla at the DPW, and if they were able to be fixed through the DPW, the school department will pay for whatever nuts and bolts and tools required out of the maintenance budget. And if it can be done through our DPW, that will happen. If the vendor needs to be called, Mr. Driscoll will be taking care of that, which is good news. Any concerns about the safety or maintenance of the playground should be directed to the school principals, as they are responsible for those grounds, or directly to Sean Driscoll, again, the Parks and Recreation Director, who was, it was a very good discussion at this meeting. So, did I miss anything?
No.
That's the gist of it, right? Yeah, it was a great meeting.
It was a great meeting for several reasons, I thought. Ms. Sullivan, one, your expertise as in the area of parks, and your leadership on that subcommittee, and the knowledge in the room between Mr. Driscoll and Mr. O'Donnell was wonderful, and their cooperativeness was great as well. I think if we have issues, those 2 guys are
Yes,
going to take care of it for us.
I agree.
I appreciate how you led that meeting.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman, I would
please.
just like to say, also, it's very nice to see that cooperation and, mutual respect back and forth. And that way, we'll be relieving a lot of the problems that we have dealing with the parks and the playground, and get them done quickly as opposed to waiting until they're almost totally in disrepair, and saving us money in the long run. So, thank you.
And there was no finger pointing. Mr.
Right.
Driscoll and Mr.
Exactly.
O'Donnell were
And Superintendent
right
Zero.
together. They were right together, yes.
Yep, it was very cooperative. It was
Yeah.
Great.
very productive.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan.
How it should be.
Mrs. Sharkey?
Yes.
Would you speak
Yes.
to us about Shore
Sure.
Collaborative?
Yes, I had a meeting at Shore Collaborative last Tuesday, the 18th. We initiated with the evaluation of our director, assistant director, and our treasurer. Our director is Jackie Clark. Our assistant director is Bob Kayanda, I think, and our treasurer is Joseph Sacco. And I have to say that all of their staff, they get evaluated by their staff and the administrators, and they pretty basically all got strong scores. Not pretty basically, they did get all strong scores, as well as the board of directors also gave them a very, very positive, strong assessment on their scores. They also did they did a school audit. The DESC did a school audit starting June 1st, and they passed with flying colors. Just to refresh people's memories, in the past few years, there has been some difficulties with some of the other shores with their financial reportings, and that was not the case with the Shore Collaborative. Everything was in order. They had no major complaints at all, if any, and so that was a very, very positive thing. The next big issue is they're going to continue to pursue buying property to expand the school and the programs. They're hoping in the fall to initiate another alternative program, and everything went well. And then we just passed their FY15 budget for next year. So that's pretty basic.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Holden?
Mary Alice, did you have a chance to discuss with them about us possibly branching off and getting our own alternative school?
I
How that
did.
would affect their expansion? And
I did talk to them, though, about it, but pretty basically, their program, if we had children that we wanted to send to their alternative school, we would have to pay for it. So, of course, by us, that's the whole reason for us to have our own, is so that if we do have any children that are over at Shore, and if we provided a program for them here in our own district, we could bring some of those children back, as well as outside placement. So, I mean, they're more than glad to hear that we may be forming our own alternative program. They're not that type of collaborative that they don't want school districts to pursue their own education for their children. They're just always stating, we're here if you need us, and they have a good relationship with John, and they also have a good relationship right now with Jen O'Connell, as they did with Lisa Howard before that. So they feel pretty confident that anything that we do, that it'll be discussed if it's needed. So that's pretty basically how, it was just a mention that we were going to try it, so that
that's a
was
great
how-
resource to have.
Oh, it's a wonderful resource to have, wonderful.
Thank you, Mrs. Sharkey. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you. First thing I wanted to talk about was the mandatory background checks that are now starting to hit the forefront with the teachers. As you know, we did put some information in your packet from the school committee, Massachusetts Association of School Committees. Massachusetts was the 50th state in the country to enact legislation requiring fingerprint-based national background checks for educators. So the school committees are required to have policies that cover both national and state background checks, and through the above-mentioned agencies, they've supplied samples on this. My feeling is that we should probably refer this to the sub-policy so that we can kind of take a look at how they're at. But there's a couple of other things that the committee the Massachusetts Association of School Committees is also recommending that on the next page, they talk about fees and areas, and they're saying that the attached policy as well as the law and regulation place the onus for the fee on the individual. The MCAS strongly recommends that school committees retain this policy language for professionals. This is similar to their license. So they're saying that, it's a one-time expense that you have to be fingerprinted. I would imagine if you've already been fingerprinted in another district and you come over to this district, it's like your license. You don't have to renew that because you're coming over, that your fingerprint information would come over as well. But we probably need to move on this because the new teachers this year must get fingerprinted. So we'd like to get a policy in place. And then within the next 2 years, we have to have everybody has had to get fingerprinted.
Mr. Perrin?
What's the recommended time frame? I mean, how often should this occur?
Well, it should happen when you have new employees. Now, I'm going to turn this question around to law enforcement on this. I would imagine once you have the fingerprint in, that never changes your fingerprint, correct?
Right. I understand that, but what I'm saying is, how often is this going to be run in the database? So, even
Right.
existing teachers, crimes can occur. I could be in Florida and commit a crime, and then it's 2 or 3 years later that we go back and rerun these. I know it's something for the policy subcommittee, but something to think about is how often. It should be a yearly basis,
So I guess I'm confused on what you talk about when you say run. So you do like a run
just
through?
because you run a records check today,
Right.
doesn't mean that tomorrow you couldn't commit a crime in a different
Okay,
state or
I see what you're
jurisdiction.
saying.
Where
Right.
it wouldn't be updated, it wouldn't be
Right.
caught, and then that first run. So I'm questioning whether or not it's biannual, if you can run it through the system. I know you have the fingerprints and everything, the new hires, but should it be biannual, or I know it should go to the subcommittee.
Subcommittee. I
But-
think would be a good discussion on that.
will there be a cost, a question to be answered, is there a cost every time we check an employee's fingerprints? If we decide, if the subcommittee and this committee decides that we need to, we have your fingerprint on file, and every year we're going to check to make sure you have not committed a crime in the last year, will there be a fee every time we check?
And this is going to be an interstate, this isn't just going to be
This
the
is national,
Massachusetts,
so-
this is
Yeah.
a national, so I think it's.
I mean, right now, we do queries every year. We're required to query everybody again each year. That's where we went from 3 years to 1 year. So there is some expense to that, and this, we would just have to run them, I guess, on that. So I'm not sure on that. I'd have to do a little more
I'm sure
research on
there's a- I'm
that.
sure there's a cost for each
Yes.
run, but, I mean, I don't think we can afford not to do it.
Right,
Now that
exactly.
we've got the tool, the 50th state in the union, the last state in the union to take this on, I think it's important that we at least do it once a year, and just get kind of, roll that into our budget sometime.
That may take the place of the query.
Right, well, yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm sorry.
There's language in the packet that we got tonight that says the employer shall continue to obtain periodically, but not less than every 3 years for the fingerprinting, to run it.
I don't think that's enough. A lot can happen in a 1 year period, let
Yeah.
alone a 3 year period.
I agree, that's just the language that was moved forward
That's
to us.
suggested,
Yeah, we went through this a year ago or 2 years ago.
Yes.
We,
We shortened.
Within.
yeah, right, we
but
check
that's-
Cory every year.
We do the query every
This is
year.
interstate, this is going.
Right, and I thought we're going interstate because we had talked about, like, what the Little League does it every year, and they had a service that gave you the first 50 for nothing,
Free, yeah.
and then after that, they charge you. And it was interstate, if not
Yeah.
international. But I thought that's what we had gone to from that policy subcommittee a year ago.
I think we should.
For Cory.
For queries, but we don't pay for queries, so the queries, But the issue is now is that the state has mandated that they've made it the law that every teacher or employee has to be fingerprinted.
So some predator doesn't leave Florida to go to Kentucky to go
Right.
ahead and just keep bouncing.
So we have to do that. So the question is now is in policy subcommittee, we have to take a look at some of these policies that they've recommended and decide how do we want to go about this. And the other part is that all new employees have to be fingerprinted this year.
Can I make a motion that we send it to the policy subcommittee and that it be a priority to have it put together so we can get it back to you probably by the next meeting and the following, with some suggestions?
Second by Mrs. Sharkey. Any discussion on the matter? All in favor of referring it to the policy subcommittee, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous.
And for my padding, you just add it to Thursday's agenda. I'm a policy meeting Thursday,
Yes.
so we'll add it to that.
We still have time to do that.
We do.
Mrs. Sharkey?
Also, there is a cost to that, to the teachers. There is, I believe, a $55
$55 cost.
cost to the teachers. So it's
And-
something to consider.
And is there a $55 cost if we decide to run it once a year, every year?
And that's,
Is it $55 every year?
I wouldn't think that, because you're not,
I think it's the service itself. We'll have to check
Yeah.
it. Let's see what other
districts are doing.
I know that another district has done it, and the teacher had to pay the $55, and they had to go to a special site. It wasn't like it was done at school. He had to drive to another town to get it done. There was like a list of 10 towns, and you have to call and make an appointment, and so,
It gets more involved than.
yeah.
And it's worth it. I mean, it's worth it for protection of the children, but it's still a cost for those new teachers that are coming. And $55 may not sound like a lot, but for some of the kids coming right out of college, it's another bill. It's another bill.
All of our volunteers in our classrooms
Yes.
would need to.
yeah, right.
Well, that actually,
Yeah, they,
Right.
that is, they do explain that. I'm glad that you brought that up. I know we can talk about it in the subcommittee, but if they're volunteers, they can be queried, as opposed to having to go through single, right. So there's some decision makings that you can do, and that can be brought out at the policy subcommittee.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving on to, as you know, we are tomorrow at the end of the year. Tomorrow's the last day of school. It is a half day for students, it is a full day for teachers. Today we did have our moving on ceremony at the middle school, which was a wonderful ceremony. 160 students moved on, or as they said today, moved up. And tomorrow we will have the moving on ceremony for our grade 5 students over at the middle school as well. That's at 10 o'clock. You're more than all welcome. Tomorrow's going to be a busy day for guests and visitors, as tomorrow is also the day for the groundbreaking ceremony at the high school, and that will be at 12:30. Today I was informed that the Secretary of Education will be attending, is going to be there. So among our special guests tomorrow will be the State Treasurer, the Speaker of the House, our State Senator, Mr. Petroselli. We will also have the Executive Director of Massachusetts School Building Authority, a member of Mr. Markey's team from the state, U.S. Senator, be there, the State Secretary of Education, Town Council President, our Chairman of the School Committee, and our speakers will also be the co-chairs of the SBAC committee. So it looks to be about a half an hour. We're going to try to move it. It's going to be held in the courtyard.
Wait a minute, sir, my speech alone is 45 minutes.
Well, people may leave by then, I'm not sure. I'll put you at the end then. I'll stay though. So that will be happening tomorrow. There are lots of upcoming things that will be happening. Just so that everybody's aware, this school during the summer will be the primary school for summer school. It will house mostly grades 3 through high school. We do have the library will be the online component for students who want to take the online course. The William P. Gorman Fort Bank School will be handling a lot of the pre-K programs there, as well as their Fort Banks program. The middle school, we will not be having any schooling occurring on that. There are summer packets that have gone out. They've also gone online. I will send those to you. I know there was a question on that. There is summer packets for ELA and math. Those, I've gotten, the principals have sent us, they've sent them to me and Ms. Haynes. We'll make sure that you get a copy of those on what the schools have sent out for the summertime. We did an air quality check last week at the middle school, and initial feedback was there was a couple of items that they wanted us to take a look at in the kitchen. They said that there's, the washer and dryer in the kitchen. They don't want the dryer in the kitchen, so we have to take care of that, which we will do. They did say that they would like to come back when the heating season begins, which makes sense because a lot of it right now is wide open, and we said absolutely. But I will get a report back, and once I get that report, I will move that right on to you folks as well. And Mr. Feeney was would be happy to come and speak to at any time on that. He did meet with the committee. The other item that I've been working on is the budget. I've been looking at the budget as we've been moving towards for next year. First of all, on the budget for this year, welcome back. The budget for this, darn, I should have said that a little later.
Planning committee.
The budget for this year, we are going to come in the black, which we are very pleased with that. We are currently right now working on all of those, and Mrs. Eccles is finalizing how that's going to come out, but we were able to hit where we needed to be. Moving forward to next year, as you will see under some of the personnel, we have had some people that have left because they're closer to home in some areas. Some people have left, quite frankly, because they were able to go to a community that offered a much larger salary for them. And so some of those have come in as cost, I hate to say that, but cost savings as we move through things. And in looking towards the budget for next year, we have come up right now with most likely, and I know Ms. Eccles and I haven't connected on it yet, but we do that. We have about $152,000 that right now is allocated in a contingency area. And so what I've been looking to do with that is to try to make sure that we look at some of the expenses this year that were unpredictable expenses and say, okay, we need to make sure that we put those expenses up and keep a cushion. So just so that I want to be right out there and tell folks what I'm doing as I look at things, I have looked at areas such as putting in some monies into the budget that allocate monies for common planning to occur at the Gorman Fort Banks, which is going to happen twice a month next year because they haven't had that opportunity. So we're able to fund that. Other areas that we've been looking at is that what I'd like to do in regards to Ms. Kelleher's position is Ms. Kelleher is going to be with us till December and going to utilize her in the role of working with me with trying to align some of the curriculum and doing that stuff, because when she leaves, I would like to bring in a curriculum person right at that point to take over. But I don't want to do that before January because I feel I have a person here and I want to utilize that person for our full money's worth there, and then in January bring somebody else in there. So I've budgeted monies for that. I've also had a strong passion, as you know, and I will say this again, and I've repeated it when I was on the school committee, I've had a strong passion to try to not have the user fees at what they're at, to reduce those user fees as much as we could as we've grown. I was very pleased when I became the superintendent to see that the user fees went from a 300 and forget what the prices were at one point to down to the 225. And I would like to allocate, I believe, and I feel comfortable with it, to allocate $75,000 towards that to reduce user fees. That's something that I've been looking at as well. And so after I have looked at those areas, plus I also added, and these are not finalized, these are things, this is just my workbook that I'm working on, because the only ones that are going to finalize it is you folks on it, and I will bring that to you. But in my conversations, we do have a music program that's growing, and this music program is, the fact that it's growing is wonderful, but it does have some cost to it. And I met with the music director today, and the music director today talked about he needed music stands, needs to purchase some extra instruments, and said it would be nice if I could have $5,000 on that. And I said, so I've allocated money in there. So when I've done some of that allocation that I've looked at right now, I still have in my contingency in my work book that I'm working with $26,000 that is still left unstated. But that's with me putting monies towards the possibility of adding a director of curriculum in January. It's also the possibility of putting monies towards user fees, putting money towards common planning, putting money towards other assessments that we need, as well as putting money towards some supplies of areas that we never funded before because we didn't have them. They didn't exist. So those are what I've been working on. Yes?
Are we going to have different options when you bring it forward? I know you mentioned reducing user fees, different supplies. Is it going to be like a priority? I just want to make sure that if there are extra funds available right now.
Yes.
That we're looking at all those wish lists of all those schools and all those principals and say, I need this to do what I need to do, the tools I need for this or that, to bring us up to par. So I just want to make sure that we really look at those request lists.
Absolutely, and I would say that there's a couple of options on it. I can certainly bring it forward. My only concern on the user fee component part is that at some point we have to make sure that we know what we're going to be charging these students and make sure that area is set. But I would like to, I have no problem presenting my ideas to, if you want to start with the budget subcommittee and then go through on the others.
I guess what I'm saying is we had that, we brought the principals in at various times and said, what are the tools you need to get to where you want to be? And they came up with, priority lists. I want to make sure that those priority lists are met before we start.
Well, and I agree with Mr. Perrin, and I think, and that's why it's probably good, but I think I have met those, but I just want to make sure. But I was worried, because that's, we've learned, and I've learned in the 2-3 years that I've been here, that it's always good to have a little money set aside because of those hidden things. The other areas is that we are taking a look at now that we will finalize at the end of this budget is what were the costs, because it was such a cold year. This was a drastic year compared to the 2 years ago where it was such a warmer year. And do we, we want to make sure that those line items, I'll tell you another area that I have actually in a workbook have added money to that is part of this as well, is I'm going to be we're probably hiring 25 new teachers next year. And 25 new teachers also requires 25 mentors. And so you've got to make sure that you have that amount, and that amount equals, we take that amount out of the extracurricular that we have budgeted, and that 79,000 that's in that budget. But that's going to be an overabundance amount next year, so I was looking at maybe making that column go to the 100,000 so we could make sure. And as you know, at the last time when we had talked, we did bring down the custodial overtime. We reduced that down from 50,000 to 30,000, and we took that 20,000 to put in for long-term substitution, because we do have a couple of teachers already that will be out in the beginning of the year for maternity leaves. So that's where I'm at.
Mrs. Sharkey? Mrs. Sharkey, go ahead.
Mr. Superintendent, that is a concern, where we're going to have the 25 new teachers. I don't believe we have 25 mentors at this time, so I don't know if it would be a possibility of offering that. Do we have that posted?
Yes, we have it posted now for mentors. That's part of the posting.
Yeah.
We did offer not this year, last year we offered a course, and we had quite a few people that had signed up for the course, and we had them trained.
Okay.
And there is the two lead mentors who are in charge of the mentoring have asked me if we could put together a summer program.
Right.
And so we're taking a look at what those costs would be as well. The thing is that we want to make sure that, everybody wants to sign up for it, but in order to be a mentor teacher, you should be, and quite honest, you should be invited to participate in those because you've accomplished the things that come across that say you have earned that right to become a mentor teacher, and now we're going to train you, and then you would be paid. In those particular occasions, what's happened this year, we've had some mentors that have had to take on multiple. And what it is, the way it's stated in the contract right now is that they get paid per person that they do it. So.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So it is your recommendation to put 75,000 more toward athletics? And
Right now, that's what I'm looking at when it comes to my, the workbook that I'm working on.
I want that lower the user fee too.
Well, I looked at that because I want to make sure, and I was usually I remember Gus Martucci years ago always used to put 15,000 would lower it by $25. That's how it went in that category. Well, so 60,000 would bring you down to about 125. And the thing is that I wouldn't want to go down to 100. I would want to stay with 125 if we did the 75,000. So that's what I'm looking at now, and we can certainly, I know you have an athletic subcommittee meeting, and you can look at that as well in those items.
So that's the recommendation you're making, is to reduce the athletic fee. The only reason I say that is
No, I'm not making that recommendation.
I thought that was the recommendation that Bill
Well, Bill's asked me, and I'm saying to you that as far as what I'm working on in the workbook right now, that would be part of the process that I would say I would recommend that we would put some of that money into user fees, because I originally had recommended that we put 109 in, we drew that back, and then when we went through the budget, I'm looking at, it's a transitional year, I'm looking at certain things, and I'm saying if we have the opportunity for athletics for those students to do it, as I've stated before, it was always one of these things when I came on board, I was looking to do that. So as a superintendent, if I could reduce them, I'd like to reduce them. So if I know that I'm going to put 75 there, then I know I have to utilize that other money in another area. But it's one of those where our next meeting's not till July 23rd, so I want to make sure that, or July 21st, that I bring these things out there so that I don't want to put you at a position where a month from now, you say, oh, now we gotta make this decision. I just want these things to be out there, that's all. I'm talking about that stuff so that we can look at it the way it goes.
Thank you, sir. Anything
That's-
else?
No, that's all I have for now, and then under transition, of course, is the move, and move. Tomorrow, we've completed 2 sets of moves. We completed the first stage and the second stage. The latest stage of the move occurred this past weekend, where we completed all of the gymnasium stuff has been moved, all of the biking longship, all of the pupil personnel, with the exception of the secretaries. They're moving on the 3rd stage on Wednesday. So that stuff is completed. Starting Wednesday morning, we will be moving first the Cummings School 3rd grade teachers over to the Fort Banks School, and then the 6th and 7th will be coming here, and we will be moving the high schools over. I don't know if you want to add anything on the move. I know that Ms. Grimes has been working continuously. She was there Saturday with the move, but so far, reflections?
It's busy, and basically, just to give you a picture of it, they bring 3 to 4 trucks, so it's not linear. So they'll come here, load up the 3rd grade, at the same time, they'll have trucks at the middle school staging and loading the 6th and 7th grade, and at the same time, may have a truck over at the high school. So it's a very dynamic, and it's all happening simultaneously. And then you just have to coordinate it so that they know, the labels are correct, they know what room they're going to, they know what building they're going to, they know the quickest, fastest way to get to the area where they're delivering items. And then when they're pulling up to a school they're going to vacate, they know the fastest way. So there's a lot of organization that really helps the move run much more efficiently. So it's just, I think some people had an impression that it was a linear kind of move, but it's not. It all happens at once. You'll see a lot of trucks around, a lot of guys in red shirts, and everybody moving all at once.
Mr. Holden?
I just want to say, Saturday I stopped in at the high school and I saw Ms. Grimes as the foreman of these moving outfits. There were a lot of red shirts, but there was one foreman in the white shirt. And I just want to acknowledge and commend her and thank her for that work on Saturday. It is could be a logistical nightmare that it's not going to happen with you at the helm. Every bin was looked at and checked before it went into a truck, and thank you.
I will personally tell you, I'm scared stiff when she goes back to the William P. Cummings School, because she has done an incredible job on this. And it's going to show with the move over the next, this week. We're talking that this move, we're looking at they want to be done by Monday.
And they want to work, right through the weekend.
Right, so that we can accomplish. What is interesting is that I was in there today and I went through the gym, and the gym is like, so it's just, everything's gone now, you know what I mean? And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about Saturday night for this event that they're going to have, and it's like, I think we're just going to be in a shell, because everything's going to be moving and constant move that's going to be coming out of that building. And but the key here is that Nora, or Ms. Grimes, has been able to really work with the buildings and get them to understand what's happening. And I do believe that we have all our teachers understand that they are moving, but
Maybe a couple of holdouts, but we'll work on it tomorrow.
but we, it is happening, and it's in one part of it is exciting, and the other part of it is scared stiff. So but we've completed as far as some of the projects. The Fort Banks, as of tomorrow, should be completed with all of its areas that we're doing on that. The Cummings School, this is the big project that's going to happen very shortly, which means, folks, that this is our last meeting in here, because once school's out, we're going to start the construction in here. And I know that you're probably going to talk about that at some point in the meetings. And then, of course, at the middle school, we've almost completed, the guidance office has been completed. We're almost completed with the 2 rooms that they've built, but now they're going to be moving over into what we call the life skills area where Parks and Recs were. And we are putting in We have a beautiful little, their lounge center that they have, that worked out well. But we have to put the wall up for the Viking Longship, as well as we're putting together a kitchen for them that is where it was behind the Parks and Recs room. So that's one other project that has to be completed, as well as they have moved the machineries, some of the cycling machines up to the drama room, and they're creating a little workroom in that area for the kids to be able to work out in that area. So those are the projects that have to be built. And then, of course, it's the move itself. And so there's lots of stuff that we're doing, but now we can do a lot of it because the kids will be out of the building. The middle school, as I said, there'll be nothing happening there other than the removing. So I'm looking forward to some point in August saying, move that bus, and so we can all come in and take a look at what we've accomplished. Because, I mean, that's where we're at, so.
If I could tell a story similar to Mr. Holden's. A few Fridays ago, at 6:30 in the evening, I happened to be at Winthrop High School on Main Street, not on Pauline Street, on Main Street. And I ran into Mrs. Grimes. And she never broke her stride. She just said, I just have to measure one thing. And that was it. And she was gone into the night. But 6:30 on a Friday night, she was out there measuring things.
Yeah.
Mrs. Sharp.
I just wanted to support what the superintendent said. Mr. Scarmaro and I were at the middle school this morning for the moving on ceremony, and we were able to, Dominic Passaro, the lead custodian, did show us the space for the guidance office downstairs in the cafeteria to the back, and then also showed us the 2 classrooms that were still being in process. And they really were good-sized classrooms. We said, sure, once the furniture goes in there, that classroom gets squeezed, but it was decent space. It did have windows in the classrooms, not in the guidance, but there were windows that have to be repaired and whatever still, but it was good. It was good.
We're getting
It was good.
So as far as that goes, that's where we're at, and I'll be updating you more and more frequently as we get there. And please feel free to come into the buildings anytime over the summer. If you'd like, just let me know you're coming, and I'll come down and give you a walkthrough and show you what's going on.
I would like to talk about where we're going to be meeting in the future. And Ms. Hames was working on a couple of locations, including the Robert DeLeo Senior Center, which is a very nice space and has a direct feed for WCAT. And as soon as we hear something firm, we will let everybody know where we will be meeting. Additionally, it has always been a mystery to me that Ms. Eccles can get her job done in months when this committee only meets once. And in conversation with Ms. Eccles, she needs us to vote on something between now and our July 21st meeting. And so I would like to ask if we could have a school committee meeting on Monday, July 14th at 6:30, provided we can find space. And the only item that would be on the agenda that evening would be from Ms. Eccles' office. So it would, we would endeavor to keep it a very short meeting.
15 minutes at the most.
15 minutes. Although with this committee, you never know. But we will try to do that. And when we do find a space and a definite date, which we hope will be the 14th, then we will let you know. But of course, we do need to have at least 4 people come for a quorum. So if you could keep that in mind, I'd appreciate it. Mr.
And
Superintendent.
just so you're aware too, on the 14th is also a school building assistance committee. That meeting will begin at 6, but
Okay.
I don't know where they're located yet either, but I think,
I believe they moved to the,
are they in the house?
to the senior center.
So they'll be at the senior
They
center.
might be at the
that
senior center.
I believe they moved their meetings there.
Okay. I was hoping we could be across the street from each other so that those of us who are on both committees could run back and forth, but We'll work something out.
Right.
And as I said, as soon as we get a definite day, time, and place, we'll let you know.
Theirs is at 6.
Okay, thank you. Personnel, Mr.
Yes, under appointments, we've appointed Michael Schwang, biology teacher, high school, and Allison Nahabedian has been officially appointed grade 3. She did 1 year as a long-term sub, and now she's been, and she was in grade 3, so we're very happy to have her come along. As well as, I believe at the last time, I mentioned that Sarah Matera and Carissa Fusillo, who had done long-term subs, have also been appointed. Under resignations, we do have a couple of them. Daniela Gates from the high school, she's leaving. She had a wonderful school and community. She loved Winthrop, but the commute from Rome, Italy will be too much for her. She's going to be moving to Rome, Italy, and will be working at an international school there. I've told her, please make sure that she keeps in touch, because you never know when she comes back where we're at. But she did a wonderful job at the high school. Caitlin Corey, who lives down in Situate, has taken a position as a special education teacher at the Gates Intermediate School in Situate. So she's been here for 2 years and enjoyed her time here and has accepted that position. Also, Ms. Randall, grade 7 grade ELA teacher at the Winthrop Middle School. She's taken a position in another district and will not be returning in September. She'll be forever grateful for her time at Winthrop School District. She's learned a lot and has been fortunate to work with such passionate and hardworking colleagues. I wish you all the best in the transition. That's under resignations. Under retirements, I do have a retirement. Dear Mr. Macero, I wish to inform you my decision to retire from my ESP position in the Winthrop Public Schools effective June 30th, 2014. It has been a pleasure working with the town's kindergarten and preschool children and our dedicated staff for the past 16 years. Upon retirement, I request a buyback of my unused sick time leave. Thank you very much. Sincerely, Marcy Hamilton. Marcy, as I said, has been here for 16 years. I've known Marcy longer than that with her daughter. I remember her daughter quite a bit. Had her daughter at 5 years old teaching acting. But Marcy's been a long time person who's worked in the system, works very well with the young children, will be sorely missed. But she's decided that it was her time to move on, and I want to wish her the best.
Do we have to accept these retirement letters?
You might have a problem if you don't.
Okay. Marcy Hamilton is a wonderful woman. I don't know what her age is. I suspect she might be 24, 25 years old because that is the amount of energy that she puts into every day that she is in the classroom. She's just a wonderful person, a wonderful teacher, and we will miss her. She's just great. She's just great. Mr. Holman.
Yeah, along with her 16 years in Winthrop, she had 16 years at Miss Marley's. So yeah, Miss Marley retiring, Miss Marcy. And I had a chance to talk to Marcy, and she was just like, you know, the kids coming through now. She's just, her group is just graduating.
Yeah.
It's all new faces, and she just said it's time. She just knew it's time. So she will be missed. She is a gem.
Yeah.
And I also would like to give the kudos to Miss Marcy. She also had my son John, who's now 31 years old, at Mrs. Marley. So she did quite a few years there. And she's very special. She understands children and she loves them, and that's why they respond to her so well. So I just want to thank her for all the years that she's worked with all of the children in Winthrop and wish her the very, very best.
You know, it's too bad many of us in the community don't really interact with all the staff. We only know, you know, Mary Alice knows more than most, I'm sure, but Miss Randall is
Yes.
going to be missed.
Yeah.
She went above and beyond.
Yeah.
She always did the food walk, and she would get 30, 40 students to do that walk with her. And it was just something that was special to that group of kids that grew every year. And it's those little outside the classroom activities like that, you know, community volunteerism. But I just hope the new staff members will follow, because she will be missed.
Yes, she will, and I agree.
I remember one of the questions that was asked of her when she applied for the job. Ms. Carsley told me, she said to Ms. Randall, "Why do you want to teach middle school kids?" And she said, because they're fun. They're weird and fun, and they'll be good to work with. And she said right then and there, Miss Carsley said, yep, she's the person to come in there. Because you have to have a sense of humor when you teach middle school students. So,
Excuse me. If I can just say, and this is not important, well, it is important to me, but I have to say, today, watching the 8th graders moving on, it was just watching them in the cafeteria and their interaction with each other. And I know that Ms. Kelleher has said that they are a class of personalities. And I have to say, and what she meant by that, it was very positive. And you could see that I don't know them a lot, very well. Some of them I do. But I have to tell you, it's just very special to watch kids and interact and having a good time, but also a meaningful time. And it was just a nice...
one of the things that you will see, I mean, and they were a class of personalities. I mean, they rooted each other on when they graduated today and moved on to the point where it was a little like, whoa, we're at a, but it also gives you a sense that they feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
They feel that they can relax and be, and they truly, they were a great group. I mean, I went to Washington, D.C., which I didn't report on that. If I may digress for 2 seconds. They were a wonderful group to be a part of. It wasn't the same because I didn't have Mr. Perrin there, but it was a wonderful trip. And I have to say that the staff, when people have to understand is that the staff that goes on that trip, those folks that put that trip together, I mean, Christina Costas does an amazing job on that whole trip. And Angela Reichart, Brian Bro, Andrew Rowley, Anthony Ferrulo, Julia Vornovoff. I mean, they all had everything down to science. Those students moved from 7 in the morning, so they started waking them up at 6, till 11 o'clock at night. We just don't stop.
I'm kind of glad I missed that.
Yeah, we don't stop. But you can't stop. You have to keep going. There's a reason for it. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. However, they learn a lot, and I actually feel that you watch them grow up too.
Oh, yeah.
You watch them grow up in that week because they really get a sense of, wow, this was great, and they come back different. And the parents, we kept the parents knowing what was going on with Facebook. Facebook's been the greatest tool there is when it comes to just making sure that everybody knew what was happening. But I really commend the teachers because they don't stop either. They're working around the clock constantly, and if there's issues, and you always have someone who's sick, and you always have a problem here, and you always have that, and but you know that you're safe with them. And for me, when I've gone a couple of times, I'm very comfortable. And one thing I love doing when I go on that trip is I sit back and I'm told what to do, and I enjoy doing that, and I watch my group, and I'm not in charge. But I do, because Ms. Costas knows exactly how that trip
She's
goes.
on her game. She really is. I bumped into her the other day, and she said it went without any incident at all, and really just right along the line.
Right.
Right according to schedule.
So with that said, we got kind of digressed a little. Under postings.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yes, you do need to vote on.
I would like to make a motion to buy back sick time from Ms. Hamilton. Second by Mr. Perrin. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we did post a lunch monitor position at the Gorman Fort Banks. That was a new position that we had created that was already in the budget because of the third grade. We've posted mentoring positions for the next school year. We've also posted the grade 7 ELA teacher, cafeteria worker for 15 hours at the Gorman Fort Banks, a grade 5 teacher. The grade 5 teacher, because that grade 5 teacher is going to be taking a leave of absence. There's a teacher that is in there. And there's 5 DP summer work that we're doing with the 5 districts, so we've asked teachers to apply if they would like to participate in that. As I said, there was a leave of absence request that was next, that's in your packet, and that's all I have for personnel.
Thank you. Any questions for the superintendent? Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Next are the warrants. We have I believe, 2 different warrants. And if there's no objection, I'll make a motion to approve both of them at the same time.
Second.
And let me make my, sorry. Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve warrant SVW14-24A in the amount of $5,435.23, and warrant SVW14-26 in the amount of $142,748.89.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Any comments, questions, discussion on the warrants? This will be a vote on both at the same time. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, it's unanimous. Thank you. Next is the payroll warrant, and we have payrolls in a couple different formats. This time we have a payroll dated June 18th, 2014 in the amount of $605,317.61.
Sorry.
Michelle,
Could you repeat what I just said?
1,000.
And we have a series of, we have a sheet which is in the packet of 5 payrolls to cover the summer payrolls, because a lot of folks do get paid at one time for the 5 payrolls over the course of the summer. And those 5 payrolls, I won't go through each and every one of them, but they come to a total. It is dated June 24th, 2014, and the total for that, for those 5 payrolls is $2,302,066.90. And so I will make a motion to approve all 6 of those payrolls at one time.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Sharkey. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The same as I abstain. Next is the budget transfer request, which I'm going to go to before I talk about. I like to print out things that I think are going to take me a long time to find, and apparently I should have printed out this.
She has a copy.
Just a copy if you want.
Thank you. Ms. Eccles has provided me with a copy of the budget transfer request for the schools, and it is in the amount of $148,111.26. Decreased that amount from sub-budgets, increased that amount into other budgets. And you can see in your packet what they are from and to. Motion by Mr. Perrin, second by Mrs. Sharkey. Are there any questions about any of the items? Any discussion on the matter? If not, we shall vote on the transfers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. Thank you. Next is information on the municipal expenditures incurred on behalf of the school department. And there's a good deal of information on that in our packet.
Mr. Chairman, I included in your packet the schedule as well as the supportive documentation that was used in pulling it together. The purpose of this document is to identify costs incurred by the town outside of the school budget on behalf of the schools. So there are things like, the biggest one is health insurance, right? Health insurance is paid on the town side budget. It's not in the school budget, but it includes school employees. And there's many costs like that. And what happens every year in the fall, we file our annual report with DESE. And in that report, there's a section to include municipal, they call them municipal expenditures incurred on behalf of the school department. And there's a section that you identify these costs. And there were some costs that in the past weren't included. And there were some costs that were included in amounts that have changed based on here. Some went up, some went down. There's some areas where we actually put a credit in for a cost that is a school cost that actually has 50% of it that supports the town. It's the MIS director. So what does all this mean? Essentially, when it gets recorded into the annual report, many of these dollar values, line items, get calculated into net school spending. Some of them do not. So in the cover schedule, this document really is what identifies all the costs. There is a column there that says included in net school spending, and Y is yes, N is no, and then with each attachment, I have a column for attachments that provide support for the actual cost documented here. This report here on the cover page is actually it's called a cost allocation agreement on municipal expenditures incurred on behalf of the school department. This is something that the town should have had already on file with DESE, and it hasn't had one, I don't know, the last few years, I'm not sure prior to that.
I don't think we ever.
Never had one.
No.
And so the idea is to get it to a point where there's agreement. The idea is that the school department and the town manager's office would concur on the allocation of these costs and how they were computed and the nature of the costs. And there's been some of that back and forth already on some of these things. For example, Mr. Chairman, you brought up on the water bills that you weren't sure if it was really all the schools because it was literally one of the fields.
Yes.
So we just kind of took a look at it and we did 50%. So it's not always a perfect science, but it seemed like that was a reasonable estimate for the breakup between, I think it was the high school and the field itself. I brought this to the Finance Commission, the Citizens Finance Committee. Last month, they reviewed it, they had some inputs, and we checked on some of the stuff that they had asked about, and then presented it to town council at a prior meeting. I believe it was 2 meetings ago. And now we'll bring it to the school committee for comment and feedback.
Mrs. Sharkey?
Yes, Tim, I know that, I guess I'm just asking you, what would you figure is the amounts, or the amount of money that was transferred back and forth that we paid and now the town is going to pay and vice versa? Do you have the amount of figures that might be? For instance, I'm looking at the water. Up until this school year, or this coming school year, the town paid for our water, correct?
Yeah, they still are.
All right, but it's in the form of net school spending, correct?
That's right.
Whereas before that was that
was
water.
not in there.
Exactly. So that's what I'm talking about. And I know that we can't solve everything right here, and I'm not asking to do that, but I'm just saying those are the costs, and that's the cost of $108,000 that we didn't have tacked on to us, though we did, as you're saying, it was part of our net school spending. So it's things like that, and fuel, again, the same thing. And the reason I speak about the fuel is because that was one of the reasons why 2 years ago, we decided to buy the bus or lease the bus as opposed to staying with a public transport company to do our kids. So and that was really the balancing. That, like I said to you earlier, I thought that was close to $40,000 for the fuel at that time. So that was the thing that kicked it over to say, no, it's better to lease than to use a public forum. So those are things that I'm sure we can talk a lot more about that.
First of all, on the fuel, if I may, the fuel is calculated based on pump readings at the DPW when the buses get filled up. They calculate which departments, incur what costs and how many gallons. But actually the fuel, it's here, but if you notice, there's an N next to it. It's actually not included in that school spending.
Okay. Right.
But keep in mind, I guess I want to be clear, these aren't costs that are being allocated to the school budget and the school is now paying for it. These are costs that have existed and have been paid for over the years, and some of these costs have been reported to DESE as a school costs in its reporting of net school spending, and some of them in the past haven't been. So what the purpose of this exercise was to capture all those costs, get them on a spreadsheet, and have this dialogue back and forth to determine whether or not, they're viewed as appropriate costs attributable to the school district. Not being directly charged, but just costs that the town is paying, that if it weren't for the school district, those costs would not exist.
Exactly. But there's also the issue, and for those who do look at the net school spending and the overage for net school spending, there was a time that you and I had spoken, and there was a time when the over net school spending was a 375. You and I both agreed there had to have been something wrong, and there was an error in the reporting of insurances. So that bumped up the 375 to 1.4. And then immediately the following year, it went down to either 825 or something like that. And then this year, we're looking at not this coming year, 925, or maybe it's the reverse. And now if I'm looking at this number and we accept the number of what you're saying, we're now up to $1.5 million over the required net school spending, which when you look at that and you go, wow, the town's giving us $1.5 million more than what the state is mandating for us to receive, it's not really that clear, and it's not really that specific. And I think that, when we do accept it or report it, that we need to explain what that number means, because there were 5 or 6 years ago, we were $3 million over net school spending. And in my thing, when I didn't understand everything, I'm going, holy mackerel, we're getting $3 million from the town. That's not really what it means. And as you're saying, there's appropriations that need to be clear and to help people to understand what those numbers actually mean.
Right. The net school spending formula that is used to which is used to contribute to the state local aid to schools, and a bunch of other things. It is really complex. It's not there's not a direct, it's not a one-for-one, as we've discussed before on Chapter 70 money.
Yes.
But let me just add, if I may, that there's a Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is extremely responsive. So I had back and forth emails with the gentleman, Mr. Roger Hatch, who this is his department, because anytime I had a question in terms of the CMR as to whether or not this, it was kind of unclear to me, he was quick to respond. For example, what isn't in here is the voc tech school tuition. So I thought it was interesting that the charter schools are in here. The voc tech school isn't, because they report their own net school spending, and they're a district.
They're a region.
They're a region. So there are interesting things like that came up.
Mr. Holden?
On the attachment A, just 2 quick questions. For the employee health insurance, you have the budgeted amount. Is that less after contributions Is that the town?
It's less, yeah, that's the town expense.
Above and beyond the employee contributions.
Yeah, which is
Okay.
like 80%, 85% of the cost.
And then on line 12, I'm sure, the workman's compensation, I'm sure the MIA is in the sports.
No, it's
insurance.
it's the
insurance
insurance.
Now, is
company.
that number, the 108,000, is that what the district paid out in workman's comp?
No, so that's budgeted. That's what we budgeted this fiscal year. So what happens with the annual report is the budgeted amount gets submitted for the current year. So in the fall, come September, October, the budget for 15 will be entered, and the actuals for 14 will be entered. So what I envision, and so that carries through for all of the cost categories, not just the town expenses, it's all of the school expenses as well. So what'll happen is, this gets sort of approved and there's a signature between the superintendent and the town manager. This document I'll be adding columns. So we got budgeted 14, then I would have actual 14.
Okay, my question is, let's say we spend 0, where does that 108 go?
The 108 would not, so when we report the actual costs for workers' comp for FY14, it would be 0.
Okay, but now that 108,000, because that was a yes, I think, with the,
That's a yes, yeah.
does that
So what
get
happens
back
is-
into our
yeah.
budget, or?
Free cash, right?
No, well,
Has it-
yeah,
does it move
it'll be free cash
Go to
because it's on
free
the town side. But what would happen with the net school spending calculation, is that what you're asking
Yeah,
about?
right.
So, if DESE will show every year, they go back about 12 years, or at least 10 years. The last row is the current year budgeted amount. That amount will change. So let's say hypothetically, this report, which if it were filed this year, would show that the total applied to net school spending for town expenses was 4.4 million.
Right.
Once we file the actual report, if the workers' comp was 0, it would be that less the 108,000. It would be whatever the actual costs were for each of these categories.
All right, thank you.
I just want to say that one of the things that's very important from that audit we did when I first walked in here was that they said that there's no written agreement between the town and the schools in regards to Chapter 70 funding. And part of that agreement that needs to happen is that not only we all have to have an agreement of how this money is being spent, but in the case that you talk about last year when, at the end, when the budgets are finally approved, sometimes more money does come back. And so you need to have that agreement that states, okay, this is your percentage, this is what's going to happen, and those
where
types
that
of
money
things.
actually
So that there's no
dispersed.
questions asked about, well, what happened to that aspect? And so that's one of the things. I will say that I've been very appreciative of the fact that, I've asked Mr. Gordon for the breakdowns.
Yeah.
He's given us the breakdowns of all these expenses. We're trying to finalize this so that people know what our budget means when it talks about an overall budget, because everybody looks at our budget as an operating budget, and they don't understand that there's a lot more that goes into it. We do, because we've been working on it, but it's really important that this is also part of that budget. And just to clarify how we're spending those types of monies. So, it's important to understand that, yes, we did get a resource officer this year, that the council did put that money there. But now they're able to also turn around and say, well, it's being used in the schools, so it is of monies that we did pay out for this person to be there, so we can show that we're putting that towards schools. It's not that we would, if they didn't use that money for there, that they would turn that money over to us. No, they chose to make that expenditure at the time out of the town council, but now have that right to turn around and say it was for the schools, so that they can put that in there. And those are the types of expenses. What I want to make sure, as we've gone through this report, is that we're not being paid double for something. That was the real key on it, that, when they talk about administrative support or payroll or different things like that, I wanted to get a clear understanding of what that meant, as opposed to, because I could turn around and say, well, we have payroll, we have this, but there are different types of interpretations that the DESE and the state say are there. And so, so I'm so happy that at least we have this document now that we can start to look at, and hopefully we'll come to some agreement soon so that we can move forward.
Any other questions for Mr. Gordon? Yes.
Final. So Tim, there were some expenses, if I understand correctly, that were being paid on, say, on the town side, that possibly should have been paid on or recorded on the school side, and some on the school side and vice versa. Would you say that's?
I don't know if there are any costs here that, are you asking me if the schools should be paying for water directly, or, I don't know,
No,
That's a
I don't
policy question.
necessarily mean that, but just as
I
a
think
whole,
she's talking about
that there were certain things.
So yeah, there's a couple of things that the adjustments would be, for example, like on line 4B,
Yeah.
Director of IT. So that's something that is paid for by the school department, 100%,
Yeah,
right? So it's in the
Yeah.
school budget. However, it's a shared resource, and he serves the town as well.
yes,
So that's why that's a negative 40,
Right.
that amount there is half of the salary.
right,
And it is, it shows up as a negative because it's in the school budget, but it's benefiting the town.
right,
On the flip side, if you go to line 1, we use the formula that DESE has for admin
Right.
costs. So it's X number, you multiply the number of students by a dollar value per student that they update every year. I calculated that, and then I subtracted out the 20,000, which is the agreement that the schools have for paying for finance director
Right.
and assistant director.
Yep.
So I reversed that out. So I really did. I tried to be independent and objective throughout this, and
Yep.
I'll continue to do that as we revisit
and I
this
thank you for
and
that.
hash it out.
It's just more of to understand, and like I said, I realize we can't do it all here, and maybe we need to meet and discuss this a little bit more, but I do appreciate what was here.
So just so what you folks will go, that at some point I'm going to be looking for, is that you will recommend that I sign the agreement at some point with this town manager. That's where we're heading. That's what we're leaning, working towards.
Okay,
Okay?
that sounds fair. Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Next is the use of buildings request. We have one request from the high school cheerleaders for car wash.
After hearing about that one,
Excuse me, they have presented us with a check. So they have paid in advance.
not for the one.
They have not paid for the water.
Motion to accept the request.
Thank you, Mr. Perrin. Second by Mrs. Sharkey. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, I know she's going to fix
Yes,
it.
I did notice there was a discrepancy in the check and the figure amount. It's minuscule, but the check was written for $84 and the invoice, if you want to call it, it was $98.
I'll put
Yes,
it,
because
Not to be,
they-
I mean,
no,
I'll put
no,
in the
they,
$8 myself, I don't,
They dropped off the 3-hour
okay.
minimum requirement.
So I
So we
wanted,
will, if they're there for 4 hours,
Yeah.
they'll pay that additional hour.
so I know that's, if I may, continue the discussion. I know that sometimes, so the PTO, for instance, might say we're going to have a 3-hour event, but then the sheet comes back that the janitor was there for 4 hours. I guess that this will be reviewed in the policy committee, but how
Yes,
is
then
that
I'll
dealt
bill them for
with?
the additional hour.
Okay,
And there's the rare occasion
Flex
where
the budget.
someone might pay ahead and the custodian is there less, and then we end up
Okay.
going, but that doesn't happen too often.
so the checks are submitted for a standard 3 hours.
Yes, I told them that they, because it's in the custodian's contract, even if it's a 2-hour event, it's in their contract that they get a 3-hour
Yep.
minimum, and we can't, it's non-negotiable because it's in their contract.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Any other discussion or questions about the car wash? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. There's no unfinished business that I know of. And then, under new business, we have a list of surplus items in the packet. Mr.
Make a
Superintendent.
comment. At the last time, what had happened is you had voted on one page. We forgot that there was page 2 and page 3 attached on the items, so this is page 2 and page 3 that were attached, I believe, correct?
Yeah, the Excel document was in sheets. I didn't realize that, so I printed out sheet 1, and it only had the middle school, but in fact, the high school was there.
Right, so this is sheet 2, the high school.
It just technically wasn't.
I know I feel like I beat a dead horse, but all those items that are surplus but offered to other agencies?
Yes, we have. As a matter of fact, I've sent it out. I sent out an email to all the department heads explaining that we had furniture. We still have people that can come over to look at it. The library has come over and scooped some
You have
good
athletic
stuff.
equipment and other items there, maybe the fire department, the police department, the DPW might be interested in something like that.
But we have certainly reached out to those folks.
Are we too late, are we precluded from offering those to different agencies if we declare them surplus tonight? Or do we pull them back and if someone has an interest in these?
I mean, if we vote tonight to declare them surplus and tomorrow the fire chief says he would like one of these items?
Any one of those items, or any other department?
He would be able to take that item. All he'd have to do is come
perfect.
over and just label it that he'd like to take it. We're not selling that to them,
I just
nothing
want to
like
make sure
that.
anything we can repurpose.
What we're trying to do is do that right away, because if not, anything that is surplus at the end, which would be next Tuesday, the movers, and part of the reason we got this moving company is that they will load all of the surplus stuff, and then that will be donated to other schools. But we would rather take care of our own first, so we have offered that. We have a good truckload coming over to the library tomorrow, the public library, so.
It's great.
Good.
Any other questions on surplus? I'm sorry, do we have a motion to, Ms. Haynes, do we have a motion on the floor right now? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the surplus list.
Second.
Second by Ms. Sullivan. Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
You know, Mr. Perrin, those stainless steel work tables might work well in the fire department or police department that I'm looking at from the
I was
cafeteria.
thinking of that stair climber for myself, but
They got a pizza oven too.
probably go with pizza on that.
Next item on the agenda is the Boys and Girls Cross-Country Overnight Camping Trip, and I do have some serious questions about this, and if the committee has no objections, I would like to ask Mr. McPhail to provide us with a few more details before we take a vote on this. For instance, my concerns are that, number one, we don't know how many students he anticipates going. Two, he lists only himself as a chaperone, and I would hope that he would have at least one female chaperone, since it is both male and female students. And three, we don't know the means of transportation to and from the overnight trip. So if there is no objections, we will put this on the agenda, or rather, Ms. Haynes, if you would call Mr. McPhail and ask him that would like that further information on this before we vote. And it is not until September 19th.
Do you want, excuse me, do you want me to see if he'll attend the July 21st meeting, or do you just want something in writing?
If he wishes to attend July 21st, I think that would be very good, in case there are additional questions. Thank you very much. Mrs. Shockey.
Yes, Mr. McPhail did say he hopes to have several chaperones attend, but I think we needed a little more definitive than hoping, so.
Yeah, I don't want to get to September 19th and have him still hoping.
Yeah. I'm sure he will have them, but
Yes.
we need a little more commitment.
Yes, please. Next is retirement citations. We have two retirement citations, one for Ms. Hamilton, Marcy Hamilton, and one for Marianne Nicoletti. Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, just so that Ms. Nicoletti has informed me, we've gotten information on her retirement, but she's not officially given me the letter yet. As I would have read it tonight, she was going to send it to me, but unfortunately, her uncle passed away. And so she's not been able to get that to us. And I told her, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it at the July meeting. However, she is going to retire, and I want to make sure that we give her that moment as well at our July meeting, but there is this citation. So I didn't want to, have people question why that we didn't do anything yet, so.
Understood, thank you very much. So I'll make a motion that we approve these citations from Ms. Nicoletti and Ms. Hamilton. If anybody would like me to read them, I would be happy to do that. Otherwise, you could look at them later. They are as they have been in the past. So I make a motion to approve these two. Second by Mr. Perrin. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. Thank you. Public comment? There is none. Public relations? Do we let the superintendent make comments during public relations?
You have?
We have. We have, it's true. Past precedent, I suppose. I'm sorry,
I guess you
sir.
could use that.
Part of
I
my
just
job-
wanted to make
part
sure
of my
that,
job as chairperson, I feel, is to give you as hard a time as I possibly can.
well, then you need to work on that. I just wanted to add that we had a correction, as you saw last week in the, I don't know if many of you saw, but we put a full-page ad of where our students will be attending and going. But Mr. Butler, we had listed as employment. He's not going into employment. Well, he is in a certain way, but he's enlisted in the Army.
Oh,
So we're very
that's
proud of
nice.
Mr. Butler, and I wanted
Yeah.
to take that moment to acknowledge that he's going there. And then, of course, I've said it earlier, and some of you may repeat this, which is fine, the Viking Pride Foundation event is Saturday, June 28th. Gosh, I know you're gonna ask me what time. I think it's at 6
6, I think.
6 o'clock. But I've heard right now, just so that people know, I've heard right now that they're close to being selling out, and you may have to, because we're inside a building, you may have to wait until people leave to come in. So a lot of people are excited to come back and see the high school, so it should be interesting. But I really appreciate the Viking Pride Foundation for putting on this event for us, so.
If there's any questions about it, you can drive by my house. There's a sign on the front lawn. So,
Or you can go online, the
Yes.
Viking Pride Foundation.
and tickets are being sold at several locations around town.
Yes.
I don't really have any PR, but just to remind parents to encourage their children to read this summer, whether it's, the reading that they're asked to read, but also encourage them just to take a part of the day, put away the iPads and the computers and sit down, even if it's for 10 or 15 minutes a day, read with your children for the young ones and encourage the other children to read. It doesn't matter what they read. They could read comic books, and I'm not proposing that that's quality reading, but reading is reading, and it helps the children to grow in their understanding. So, and also for all the children to be safe, and please listen to your parents about where to go and where not to go, and also for our staff to have a safe and happy summer. And that's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Sharkey. Mr. Perrin.
Just what Ms. Sharkey brought up, the iPads. At what point are we going to sign a contract with Apple?
Well, we're
How's
working on
initially
that
going?
right now. With Apple, we're trying to figure out, we're working on with the School Building Assistance Committee as well as our own budgets to see how we're doing on that, because when you sign that contract, that's a big contract, so it's still ongoing.
We're going forward with that.
We're working towards going forward with that, but it's still, as I said, ongoing, so.
Okay, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Ms. Sullivan?
Nothing, thank you.
Mrs. Sharkey, thank you for reminding us all to have our children read this summer. Certainly having them read, but also a great fun is reading to them. I have, as you know, I have 3 children, and it's always fun to find a really good
Good book.
children's book.
That we all enjoy.
Even those of us who are slightly older can get enjoyment, not only from the book, but from reading certainly to our children.
Yep.
It's very important. It's great time to spend with your child.
Lots of fun.
Is there anything else this evening?
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Hames?
I just realized, looking down, there was a request for a can drive. I don't know if you need to approve it. It's not a building request, there's no
Yes,
custodial
I am.
charge. They
Thank
just
you
want
so much for
permission.
reminding me of that.
Yeah.
I
They
saw
just
it, of
want
course,
permission to be
and
able
I
to
was
drive.
going to remind it, remember it, and of course,
Sorry.
I didn't. Do you know what page?
Yes, he's looking for July 5th or 12th. It's for the boys' basketball. They just want to have a bottle drive in the driveway.
And
No
that-
access to the building, no custodian.
That's at the Gorman School.
No, it'll be at the school.
I'm sorry, here, I'm sorry, I see it here, at the Cummings School, Saturday morning the 5th. No custodial, no fees. I wondered if we needed to approve this, but because it is on school grounds, I think you're right that we should
It's a fundraiser.
approve it.
Motion.
Motion by Vice Chairman Perrin, second by Mrs. Sharkey. Any discussion on the can drive approval? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, it's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Hames.
Thank you.
Are we okay now? Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Hagan. Is there another minute or so, Mr. Mail, please?
Sorry, we're done.
No. We run a tight ship here, it's not like the town council. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Please.
I'll second
Motion
it.
by Ms. Sullivan, second by Mrs. Sharkey. Discussion, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, we're adjourned.